Something I have thought a lot about at Glassdoor, and I've actually seen at both LinkedIn and Wallet as well, is what happens when companies scale. How do you provide service at scale? And so, what typically happens with any new startup or any fledgling company is you first, and there are companies that have inverted this and gone for startup source, but often you tend to go for large enterprise type customers first. They've got budgets, they've got money. You sell a bunch of enterprise customers, you build sometimes even a custom product. You definitely have a super customized service motion and model that you have for them. And that's how you get out and you get product market fit. You start to build your base of customers. And then over time, the enterprise space is finite. There's, only so many Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies out there. And something like, and forgive me if I misquote this, but something like 60% of employers in the US have less than 10 employees. So tons of SMBs out there. That just goes to say the SMB space is huge. And then so you start to figure out how you can sell into the SMB space. And as you do that, and that is kind of, I am equating that with when a company scales, although of course, as I mentioned, some companies will start small and go big. Either way, for your first initial customers, you likely are building a relatively high touch service model. They've got 2 or 3 people who are at their beck and call. They need anything, we're there providing super superior service. But over time, and as you scale, you can't do that anymore. One, because as your company grows and you just run out of venture money, you just get to a point where profit matters. Uber is obviously defying all of these truisms, but for most companies, eventually you need to start turning a profit. But secondly, as you start to sell into smaller companies or you have smaller deal sizes, it doesn't make sense to have a dedicated team servicing a really small customer. So what do you do? And that's where automation comes in. And I think that this is an interesting space in that a few years ago, automation was super hot. Everyone was buying tons and tons of different products. And across the space, you're buying so many different tools for sales teams, for marketing teams, for customer success teams, both for their day-to-day and then automating their touch points with customers, just tons of tools. And I've actually talked about this a few times at different conferences I've been to recently, but we're just now in tool overload. We're at a point where we've gotten so many tools, everything does not seamlessly integrate with each other, and things start to break. If you have 3 different tools that are contacting a given customer, I guarantee you at some point they are sending conflicting information, or something that is supposed to go out gets lost. You lose a different customer contact name between, you may have different contacts between the 2 tools. It's really hard to manage. And so, it's not easy, but what happens as you start to, scale and grow is you need to figure out what touch points matter and how do you automate them? And how do you limit the amount of automation that hit on the things that are important to customers? And this is different between the type of customer for certain, like whether they're a large company, whether they're a small company, what kind of products they're buying. And then the big kind of player on the scene now, of course, is self-service. There are a lot of buyers, especially when you talk about millennials coming up in the workforce, they don't want to talk to a sales rep. They don't want someone to take them out to a steak and wine dinner. They want a product they can buy on their own, and that the service is built into the product. They can get their questions answered and move on with their day. So how do you also then figure out which customers want to hear from you and which customers don't? So this is something I'm spending a ton of time thinking about now, but I think frankly it's been something that's been on the table at all of the companies I've been at, because all of the companies I've been at have been in hypergrowth.